Well, what we got your favorite movies? The movies that I owned. I can't think of the top of my head. Now I'll make a big fucking list and just fucking yap for hours on end. So this is just movies that I own. Um, movies are complicated, man, because there's so many movies that I like. I'm not gonna be fancy here with the Kino Lobers, the Vinegar Syndrome, the Arrows, the Criterions, and this on that. I'm not that too fancy. It's a lot of popular stuff here and there. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not into much of the artsy shit. I'm not into the artsy shit. Not so much. I guess I'm not an intellectual for that, right? I'm just a fucking retard, right? So I'm going to be using offensive language. I'm going to speak freely. I'm going to be myself. I want to be myself in this video. I can't pretend to be nice and be cool and all that shit. Be something that I'm not. Pretty much that's what sums up YouTube. Bunch of fucking fake ass personalities. So I'm going to get strictly to the bullshit comic books, right? I already did this fucking video and I wasn't very pleased, but let's go with the Sam Raimi, right? First three Sam Raimis. I've only liked the first one. First one I loved. The only thing that was very disappointed with the first one, he didn't go with the gadgets. He had to go with the Ultimate Spider-Man, where he had it inside his system, the webs and all that shit. But I grew up more with the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s Spider-Man. That's what the comics that I really enjoyed growing up as a kid. Well, not in the 60s, obviously, but I did buy those essential books years ago, and I read through them. I always loved and appreciate smart Spider-Man. Unlike the last two Spider-Man movies, right? The recent ones where he has to depend on an AI suit, on an OS, and on his stupid piece of shit friends, right? Spider-Man can't be Spidey. He needs help all the time. I just don't get it. I do not like those Spider-Man movies. Tom Holland, whatever. The only credit I give to him is he captures the essence of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I never take that away from him, but it's just a dumb fucking Spider-Man. He's a fucking moron, an imbecile. That's why the only thing that I enjoyed was the villains. Michael Keaton did a good performance. The other guy, I forgot his name, Mysterio. Especially Mysterio. The essence of Mysterio in that film is uncanny. I love the Mysterio in that movie. That's what made up that movie for me. Not the little bus rides and the little trip, the vacation trip. That shit was fucking dreadful for me. Don't worry, I'm going to get to Endgame. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make sure you dislike this video. Because I know everyone loves Endgame, right? You love that shit. Fucking A. Fuck me. Now, the first Sam Raimi, it's like a comic book. Yes, it's corny, it's goofy or whatever, but it's just like the comics. It's just like comics come to life. Then you have the second one, Doc Ock and Spider-Man. That little bank fight and all that, that was cool. I love that, but other than that, I just don't like that movie. I do not like the second one. That train part, holy fuck, that was a big turn off. And towards the end, the ending, and I was like, I guess. You have the third one. Now you have the third one. Yeah, we all know it's fucking bad. Because you know why? Because when you throw in too many fucking villains, it's not going to work out. Right? It's always a shit show. Just like the Amazing Romance 2, right? With Electro. Oof. Jamie Foxx. That made me hate Jamie Foxx. That fucking Electro. That fucking dumb, ugly, retarded Electro. Ugh. Then the Rhino. The Young Goblin. Wow. The Amazing Romance. What a fucking piece of shit. They were heading in the right direction with the first Amazing Spider-Man, right? With the lizard. That was actually pretty damn good. I liked it. There were some flaws, but I liked it. Then the second one came along and just ruined everything. But then the third one, the Sam Raimi, the Sandman, he was fucking great. He looked like the Sandman. He acted like the Sandman. Let's say if they would have just focused on the Sandman alone, saved Venom for the fourth one or whatever. But if they just focus on the Sandman, it would have been a good movie, in my opinion. If they would have just focused on the Sandman, make him a criminal. Don't make him a criminal. He's doing criminal activities because his kid is sick or whatever the fuck. No. if they just would have just focused on Sandman, I believe it would have been a very good movie. And by the way, the best Spider-Man movie is Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, it's not a live-action movie, but it was really well made. The chemistry, everything about it was really, really good. Now we got the Dark Knight. Yes, you have the 1989 Batman. You got all the classic Batman, the Michael Keaton. Batman Returns, not so much. I don't like that so much. Like what's Danny DeVito did a good job. I liked it, but Batman Returns was just as good as the first one. The first one is a classic, so I'm not gonna throw out and mention every single fucking movie in this video, by the way. But the Dark Knight, this is something I could watch over and over again. Now, The Dark Knight Rises could have been a great movie if Ledger never fucking popped those fucking pills, right? He was a great Joker. He was phenomenal. But he had to fucking die and fuck everything up, right? Man, when once they first announced him as Joker, I was like, this is going to be horrible. Brokeback Mountain Boy? Are you serious? Once I saw that movie, that proved me wrong. I was like, oh, fuck, I should have never spoke all that shit, but he did have to pop those fucking pills and fuck everything up. I think Rises would have been perfect between Bane and Joker. And you could throw in the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. Oh, man, this is all messy here. Alright. Best X-Men movie? The Wolverine. I like the Wolverine, though. The extended, uncut version. Definitely pick this up. Watch it. Except for the last 15 minutes with Silver Samurai. It was complete ass and a disappointment altogether. But they finally got the Wolverine right in this movie. Rogan. I love you, Rogan. I love you. Right? But they finally got the Wolverine right. Wolverine was a fucking badass. Finally. And it was really good. A lot of people like Logan. There's a lot of flaws I have with Logan. I'm not going to get into it. Like, the action, fucking awesome. But when it got to that kids and all that, it's like, oh, God. What? Read the fucking comic book. This is what I'm going to say a lot. Read the fucking comics. Stick to the fucking comics, man. Comics is what makes these fucking Marvel stuff fucking classics. The fucking amazing, right? Read the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s. And then you got the first Avengers that I love. Age of Ultron was a piece of garbage because Ultron wasn't really that malicious, vicious. He was very disappointing in that fucking movie. Ultron. Oof. I saw it 2 times in the theater because my brother wanted to see it. Spent some, brotherly time, right? And then my cousin wanted to see it. And I was like, oh, fuck, I really don't want to see this movie again. But I was forced to see it. And I said, holy fucking shit. Someone kill me. That was dreadful. And then you got Infinity War, which it was all right. It was all right. It was okay. And then, you saw the Hulk. Hulk was, pretty fucking badass in this one. The second one, between the bestiality between him and Black Widow, I was like, I'm not really feeling it. But Hulk was still pretty badass in a way. And then came Ragnarok, right? Ragnarok was a piece of fucking shit. People loved that shit. I fucking hated it. It was just, I love the villain in that movie, though. But other than that, pretty bad how they've been portraying the Hulk. And the Infinity War, God, it was like, okay. And then the Endgame was pretty much, they butchered the Hulk altogether along with Thor. So, yeah. Endgame, the first 2 hours and a half was on suicide watch because I just couldn't take it anymore. It was really fucking bad. The last 30, 40 minutes of that movie was fucking epic. And it gave a nice, great ending to Captain America. But other than that, holy fuck. Every time people say Endgame, oh my God. I just roll my eyes. I just like, why? And they got Winter Soldier. They didn't fuck with Captain America too much besides, this is Captain America's ass, or whatever the fuck he said in Endgame. That shit was gay as fuck. It was corny. But Winter Soldier, probably the best Marvel movie. That's it. That's like the top. You got your Blade, the first Blade, Wesley Snipes, that had its moments where it was like kind of a turn off, but still it was a well-made Marvel movie at the time. We all know Ghost Rider's a piece of shit and blah blah blah. And then you got X-Men with Bryan Singer, the pedophile who loves sucking on little boys' dicks. He butchered X-Men all entirely. Days past, you know what? Just read the comic books. That's it. You don't have to watch that movie. It wasn't even that good. A lot of people love it, but not me. So fuck that movie. Okay, let's move on from the comic books. Wow, that took 10 minutes. That's sad. Now we got Death Wish 3. Guilty pleasure for me. No, I actually do like Death Wish 3. Yes, it's not as good as the first one. Yes, it's fucking nuts. Because he's in the Bronx blasting all those motherfucking lowlives. And that's what I fucking love. Just kill all those fucking lowlives, right? Just fucking blast all of them. That's all we need to do nowadays. Just blast them. But everyone's too busy on Twitter complaining and crying all the goddamn time. They need to get blasted as well. And by the way, get off that fucking Twitter because you're going to end up turning into a fucking retard. Now we got Maniac. Maniac. My all-time favorite slasher. Horror film, right? You got your Halloweens, you got your Hellraisers, you got this and that, Jason, Freddy, and all that bullshit, and Chucky. But Maniac is my all-time favorite next to Dead Alive, which I don't own. Remember J&R? Remember J&R back in the 70s? 80s and 90s. Well, I grew up in the 90s, but I appreciate J&R. And J&R was the ultimate fucking store. When you were a tourist in New York, you would go to J&R, buy something from J&R. J&R was the fucking great spot to go to. They had everything, electronics, movies, games. I bought my first Jaguar there. I bought a lot of games there. Even in the early 2000s, I would visit there to pick up some Blu-rays. And Dead Alive was there. And it was a little too pricey for my taste. And now look, it's out of print and they want an arm and a leg, but the good news is Frighteners is coming to 4K. So perhaps Peter Jackson made a deal with Arrow and hopefully we'll be seeing Dead Alive. Either a 4K restoration or an actual 4K transfer later this year from Arrow. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens. And other movies, Let Me In, Let the Right One In. Put your one foot out and shake it all around. You know, I don't own those, but I really like those a lot. I never read the book. There's so many movies, you know. I'm not very fancy of the Criterion, the Kino Lobers. Kino Lobers, they're doing a fantastic fucking job lately with the 80s movies. They're releasing a lot of 80s classics. And I'll have to wait for a sale because those movies, you know, they're 20, 25 a pop. So I'm going to wait for a sale. I'm going to buy a shitload of Kino Lobers. Kino Lobers is like, they're on their game lately. You know, you have the Arrows and Vinegar Syndromes and all that. You're not going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot more of the popular shit. That's why I got the comic book shit out of the fucking way. And I know I'm going to offend people first with that. And they're going to stop watching after a while. So if you're still watching, thank you. Now you got Ghost World, a young Scarlett Johansson. She's still fucking hot. She's fucking hot since she was young, you know. I'm not trying to sound too creepy, but she's fucking hot. Oh, I forgot to take out Lost in Translation. I also loved Lost in Translation. But Ghost World, I've always liked this guy. I forgot his fucking name. He was in another movie, Tree Lounge, as well. That's another movie I really like a lot too. Alright, I'm not gonna drag any more ass here. Steve Buscemi? Okay. But yeah, Ghost World. Great watch. Especially her, man. She just stopped acting after a while. She's fucking cute, man. Beautiful girl. Coneheads. Now this never came out in the US for Blu-ray, I believe. Not yet. So this is Umbrella Entertainment. This is an Australian company, but this is region free. I bought this on eBay when it first came out back in, I think it was last December I got this. And Conehead's a classic, man. I grew up a lot of SNL, watching Comedy Central reruns of early SNL of the late 80s and early 90s. Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, Dave... whatever the fuck, and Mike Myers and all those people. I grew up a lot of that, and I loved all of them. I loved, especially Phil Hartman he was gone way too soon, man. When I heard about what happened, I was just like in shock. Like, how can that happen? Especially to him. The fucking wife killed him. The kids know, right? Did she end up killing herself? I believe so. It's such a tragedy. And then Chris Farley as well. He died, you know, drug overdose or whatever. It was just fucking, man. I remember I used to watch Fox 5 News, 10 p.m. You know where your children are? I think the news was more fucking more of a horror show than actually any horror movie I used to watch as a kid. I used to be scared shitless watching the news. But once I first heard Chris Farley, man, I cried. I love Chris Farley. He was fucking hilarious. Even talking about it gets me choked up, man. If only he was still alive today, man. Probably making shitty movies with Adam Sandler. But hey, man, he was one of a kind. John Candy, you know, a lot of fucking great comedians back in the 80s and 90s. You got Spit on Your Grave, good revenge movie. They fucked her, they raped her, and then she came right after them and just fucking chopped dicks, choked them out, and all that good stuff. Emily. This is, you know, I'm not too fancy with the foreign movies either, but I really enjoyed this one tremendously. Once I saw this movie, I don't know how many years ago, I bought the DVD when it first came out. I watched it. I bought the soundtrack right away. The soundtrack on this movie is amazing. Great French movie. You got Dawn of the Dead right here. Love this movie. A great story told. A lot of people will probably expect a zombie action flick or whatever the fuck. No, this is a story well told. You got some of your action, but you have a great story behind it as well. Dawn of the Dead is a great fucking George Romero film, along with Night of the Living Dead, the original, right? I believe it's Night of the Living Dead. Fucking brains is no, that's Return of the Living Dead. But Night of the Living Dead is a classic, and I did enjoy the remake. I did enjoy the remake. I really like the remake a lot as well. But obviously the first one, the very original one from the 60s, I believe, classic. Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. You see, Jim Carrey was the man that made me want to become a funny guy, right? When I was growing up as a kid, I used to say and do all dumb shit to make kids laugh and all that. I wanted the attention because I loved Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was one of a kind, and then I don't know what happened. But in the 90s, he was the fucking man. Liar, Liar, The Mask. I will eventually show you Dumb and Dumber. And man, that part with the fruit, never gets old, man. He puts that fruit shit, all that shit in his mouth and goes, Billy Madison. Now, a lot of people like Happy Gilmore. People always praise Happy Gilmore. You know, Happy Gilmore is the best one or whatever, but I would throw in Billy Madison, Punch Drunk Love, Waterboy, Wedding Singer. But you know what? Billy fucking Madison. You know, it's just, this is another movie I can never get tired of. I could watch this shit every fucking day. It's just fucking mindless, just fucking plain fucking stupid. But it's fucking hilarious. I love Billy Madison. We got Ford versus Ferrari. I'm not really into cars that much, but once I saw this in the theaters, I was like, wow, the chemistry, the acting, everything about it. It's just a well-made fucking movie. I love Ford versus Ferrari. Savage Streets. Now, there's another great revenge movie. And Linda Blair, man, she was a hot piece of fucking ass back in the 80s. She was fucking fine as fuck. Those big juicy titties, man. Linda Blair, she can still get it. I'll tap that still. But Savage Streets, I enjoy this one a lot. Now you got Serial Mom, another fucking random crazy ass movie. This one I really like a lot as well. Very good movie, very funny, very random. I would, if you've never seen this one, definitely give it a watch. Now you got Hobo with a Shotgun. Supposedly they're actually going to remake this movie, but into today's standards with the LQ, BBLT, BBQs, all these communities. They're actually going to change the title, A Homo with a Shotgun. But A Hobo with a Shotgun, very good movie. Very good. I like this movie. I won't be seeing the remake. Die Hard with a Vengeance. You know, I lived in New York. I grew up in New York. Probably the only reason why I really enjoyed this movie. But, you know, the chemistry between Bruce and Samuel Jackson was very fucking good. It was a good damn fucking action movie. A lot of people prefer the first one. I prefer With a Vengeance. Now, which are the three Richard Pryor movies I like the most? Out of this collection, by the way. The Toy. I like The Toy. If any of these sensitive morons of today, like woke Twitter, the woke mob, right? You fruitcakes. If you would have saw the toy today, you'd be so offended by it. A little white boy, little rich white boy goes in the store, pretty much has all the toys. His father buys him everything. But you know what? What he saw in the toy store was a black man. He wanted a black man. Now, that shit was fucking hilarious. The Toy was a very good movie. That's probably one of my favorite Richard Pryor movies, by the way. Not Another Teen Movie, along with Road Trip, Deuce Bigelow. The early 2000s had a lot of pretty fucking good fucking comedies. Comedies aren't funny anymore because you got to be politically correct, right? You can't throw in a little bit of racism. You can't throw some stereotypes. You can't judge no one now, because if you do, you're homophobic, you're transphobic, you're this, you're that, you're racist, blah blah blah, all that fucking bullshit. Chris Evans not proud of this movie. Chris Evans woke as fuck. I'm sadly he's a woke motherfucker. Fuck Chris Evans. Love you as Captain America, but you're a schmuck. But not Another Teen Movie. Fucking funny. Now we got Punch Drunk Love. So I could relate to this. The fucking weirdo, awkward, sometimes gets fucking angry randomly. It's just this movie. There's something about this movie, man. It's probably one of my top fives. I would say maybe top 10, but it's just between him and her accepting him as who he was and who he is, and it's just all that shit. It's just, this movie means a lot to me. That's all I can say. Cookie, are you gonna go call your black friends Cookie now? You should call him Cookie. I'm gonna be like, what? I don't have cookies. Yeah, you got Cookie. Men of Honor. I really enjoy this one. Like the Fist of the North Star, the Vampire Hunter D, and all that stuff, and this Street Fighter 2 animated. You got that real art. You got that man's art, right? Not that alpha shit. That alpha shit was gay. That shit was whack. But this shit, I used to watch the shit out of this movie on VHS. I had the VHS. I used to watch it every couple times throughout the week or whatever. I just have a very sentimental just attachment to Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. I love this shit. This shit was great. Supposedly it's kind of rare now or whatever. I don't know, but this is a great transfer, by the way. Definitely get this if you could get it. You got the Mannequin. This guy was the fucking man in the 80s. Fucking the Mannequin. I remember I used to go to the malls and shit, stores, and look at the mannequins. I would think they would come to life and try to fuck me. I would have been like, hey, go ahead. I'm just a little fucking lonely ass fucking pervert. But the Mannequin, that's a fucking classic, man. Just one of the guys. Another 80s classic. Oh, here comes the Lonely Boy. The Lonely Boy movie. Her. This made me cry like a little bitch in the movie theaters. I was looking around and was watching me cry. Damn, man, fucked up, man. This is a lonely ass nigga, son. Shit. Fucking lonely as fuck. But her, very good movie. Now we got the Guys Being Guys Party 3-pack. Which movie is my favorite? It's one of my favorites of all time. Probably next to Billy Madison, Dumb and Dumber, Punch Drunk Love. Which one? Revenge of the Nerds. I love the Revenge of the Nerds. That was a good... That fucking movie, even as a kid, I used to watch it. It's like, you're one of the fucking, how you call them, loners and shit, You don't stand out. You're an outsider. You're fucking different. You're fucking weird, man. You're fucking, I wasn't really much of a nerd, but, I could relate. And that's why I love Revenge of the Nerds. And they get the bitches in the end. Look at that. It's a fucking nice little ending, right? You got Monster Squad. Nice little tribute to all the Universal monsters. Fucking classic. 80s, baby. Gotta love the 80s. Put this shit on my lap. The Wolfman. Wolfman is always going to be my favorite Universal monster. And you got Wolfman versus Frankenstein. I used to own these shits in VHS. I used to watch them as a kid. But Wolfman is the fucking man. The best Universal monster. Better than Frankenstein. I like him better than Frankenstein. By the way, yes, I have these special plastics for the steel books. You get them on eBay. If you're curious where I get them, I'll post the link. You let me know. But I highly doubt it. You've been watching 25 minutes of this video. Now you got Dumb and Dumber. Like I said, man, I could watch this all day, just like Billy Madison. Never get bored. I love Dumb and Dumber. This is probably maybe my favorite Jim Carrey movie. I used to love The Mask as a kid, but once I saw this, I was like, this is fucking totally fucking stupid. And I like the sequel too. Obviously, it's never going to capture the essence of the first one. But the second one was actually quite good. But that's because my expectations were very low. Now you got Problem Child 1 and 2. Ritter. Ritter was an excellent, phenomenal actor. He was fucking another special human being that was that had to go away too soon from us. Just like, stay tuned. Enjoyed this movie a lot growing up as a kid, and watching it recently, it's still a great fucking movie. You got Uncle Buck, John Candy, another person that left us too soon. Nielsen, this guy, I don't care what you say about his movies, man. This guy is, these fucking movies are hilarious. So fucking random. A lot of it's corny and goofy and all that, but it's still fucking funny. It's like clever. It's a clever comedy, even though sometimes there's some parts that's just very corny. But Nielsen, another fucking awesome comedian. Class of 1984. Phillips recommended me this film, right? I remember he told me about it, and I was like, oh, I do kind of remember that, but not too much. You know what? Let me give it a purchase. And I enjoyed it. And it's, you know, you got these fucking little delinquents being little fucking jerk-offs and shit, killing people, fucking around with people, and substitute teacher finally got tired of all this shit and decided to fuck them up. It was similar to another substitute movie that came out in the 90s. That one was actually quite good. I remember that shit was on HBO or Showtime all the time. I forgot what's that movie called. Well, the Substitute, I guess. Perhaps, maybe that's what it's called. I don't know. The Cable Guy, another Jim Carrey movie that I loved. It's I guess a guilty pleasure, you could say. Not for me. Actually, I do genuinely like it. I grew up as a kid. I remember renting this movie pay-per-view. It was like, what, $3, $4 back in the day, $3.99 or whatever. And it would give you 24 hours to view it as much as you want. And I remember that day, I just watched that movie like 5 times. I memorized all the lines. I memorized everything of that movie. And the chemistry between Jim Carrey and this other guy, I forgot his name already. That fucking chemistry is like legit. You can tell they had real chemistry. So the Cable Guy, you can say what you want, but it's one of my favorites. Now, lastly, it's gonna be a shocker, right? This has not come out in the U.S. I'm surprised even when I was trying to buy it. Not available. I was like, what the fuck? One of my favorite Mel Gibson movies. This is the first movie that actually made me cry as a kid. I was very confused as a kid when I was watching this movie, because I just started, you know, I had like a sentimental feeling to it. It made me cry, and I'm like, wow, movies can actually really make you do this to yourself. Like, it was so awkward for me, and I'll never forget that. The Man Without a Face, and just watching it, I was just it took me off guard. I was like, whoa, man, that graduation at the end, when he was at the graduation, man, I started crying. I was like, holy fuck, man. Damn, why am I crying like a bitch? But The Man Without a Face, that was a good fucking, one of my favorite Mel Gibsons. You know, people would say the one with Danny Glover, ready for a Lethal Weapon, or Mad Max. No, fuck that. Man Without a Face. It's my favorite. So this video is 30 minutes long. By the way, if you're curious about the plastics that I'm using, I had to buy more. That's why you saw some movies without plastic. I still need to do the plastic process. I needed more plastic. It's Square Deal. It's called Square Deal. You can get it off on Square Deal Records. It supplies. The plastic is phenomenal. Like the material of the plastic, very strong, very good. Now the only problem is, let's say you have the Arrow movies with the sleeves, does not fit. The recent Paramount movies with the folding thing, like Ghost and Airplane, does not fit. But but with the sleeves, it's a bit of a snug fit. But let's say your sleeve is like great condition, is straight, it'll slide in easily, and I do not see it, doing any personal damages on the edges or whatnot. So, even though it's a snug fit, it's actually pretty damn good. This plastic is very fucking good. I was very impressed by it. So, the more you buy on eBay, the cheaper it becomes. I bought 400 worth. It was 28 bucks. So it's pretty cheap. So I highly recommend it. If you want the link, let me know. Same goes for the steel books and all that stuff. But there you go. That's my video. Severe Outcome. Shout out to Severe Outcome. He recommended me this video about 2 years ago when I did my favorite video games of all time. My top 15. Movies, I can't do a top. That's too difficult for me. Because there's so many movies. And like I said, that Kino Lorber is releasing a lot of classic 80s that I grew up as a kid watching in the 90s on TBS, HBO, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And there's 4 more movies that I love that are my favorites. I just can't think of, So there you go, Severe Outcome. And Sean G mentioned this video about doing a top whatever of movies as well about a month ago or so. So I said, you know what? Let me do this shit. Let me get it over with. So there you go, guys. I hope I offended some with my language. You go fuck yourself. And yeah, you guys have a great day. You guys be safe, alright? Later. Later.